Welcome to Earth!
Oh my god.
Welcome, everyone, to another bonus episode of Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. I am Gooey, joined by McKenna.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, good.
And we are here to, once again, take a trip off the path of the Nintendo 64, and we're going to talk about the movie Independence Day, which we already sort of talked about a little bit in our Best of 1996 episode, but as we said in that, it was kind of a big movie for both of us. You know, it wasn't my favorite movie as a kid, but definitely one I thought was super cool and watched a lot, and of course it was a big one for you. And we thought we can dive a little bit deeper and talk more about the movie itself. You know, we touched on it a little bit, but I think there's a little bit more that we can talk about. But before we do that, we got a bunch of reviews, comments, and things like that from all over that we wanted to shout out. We definitely had to start to curate a little bit more. I don't have every YouTube comment that we got, but actually it's kind of cool. People are also listening to the podcast on YouTube, which is pretty cool. So,
yeah.
First thing I want to do, first thing we have here is actually a review from over on just Apple Podcasts or whatever. And of course, if you could, go to whatever platform you're on and give us a review. We'll try to give you a shout out on the show. Do you want to read it?
Sure. From Nostalgia Powerhouse. The Nintendo 64 was my first console, and I recently started collecting old guides and games to add to my game room. I enjoy the references to what's going on during that time period. Fun, breezy, and enjoyable to listen to.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think they're calling us the Nostalgia Powerhouse.
Oh.
I believe their name is Lover of the Arts. Hear ye.
I see.
Or maybe I got it backwards.
I don't know.
I don't know. But thank you nonetheless. I'm sure neither of those are your actual name. So one thing I discovered is that we can there's a whole thing for Spotify for podcasters. They have a whole interface that I don't quite understand and I don't know how to log into. But one day I got an email that someone commented on one of our episodes. So I think we have a general poll over on Spotify that's just what did you think of the episode? And Andrew Kennedy left a comment and said, I had never played these games, but I'm into it. Looking forward to 1080 and Turok. So thank you. Go do that on Spotify if you want. I'll probably get an email about it, and I'll go figure out how to log back in. We also have one. So this is a YouTube one from our old pal Anubite, who has caught up to the show since launching, and I took this one because it kind of encapsulated the first run of our show. But he said 1996 was a great prologue to this N64 retrospective. I can't wait to find out about games I never really thought about or only saw at the video store, never touching it. Hype for 1997. So yeah, we're here in our actual catalog of N64 games. We're moving on to 1997, but we're taking another dip back into 96. Okay, do you want to read this one? This is very
cool and fun must be the title of the review.
Yeah, so we're figuring out whether
from Boomerang Slash, is that what that's the
yes,
the
Boomerang
person?
Slash.
Okay. Good, honest looks back at a different time in gaming with a fresh perspective. Great host and excellent production.
Thank you. I also pulled this other YouTube comment. I believe this is also from our fine patron Scurvy Scurvo. I think. But the way YouTube has their usernames now is confusing.
Yeah.
But Scurvo said, and this you can get this information too in our Discord, because he shared some of the clips that he's referring to over in our Discord. So check the description and come join. There's fun stuff in there. But he said, Hey, love the pod. For the Mario Kart 64 episode, fun fact about that, the Japanese and American versions have different voices for some characters. Some of those voices were used in Mario Party for the N64, which I definitely noticed that in the clip that was shared. The Toad voice I specifically remember they used for Toad in Mario Party on the menus, and he was like "Yo!" and stuff like that. But those were really weird to listen to. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to that, but
No, I haven't yet.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. And some of them are like, why are they different? Why'd they get a different guy to go? Here we go.
Yeah.
One last one from a commenter we got over on YouTube from Infection Form, who said, I just discovered this podcast after Gooey mentioned it in his most recent Legend of Zelda playthrough video and have binged the whole thing, already looking forward to more. I really appreciate the historical context you set up for each episode, as well as the autobiographical segments as well. It really gets me in the nostalgia mode, remembering my first experiences with the console back in the 90s. Keep up the great work, guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming over from my YouTube, where I am diving into all of the dungeons in the Legend of Zelda series. Go over to the Gooey Fame on YouTube and check that out. And also, thank you, Infection Form came in and became a patron right away. And I have a list of our patrons here that we want to thank, our good buddies. Do you want to read off the names?
Sure. Infection Form, Golly Rogers, Nico, our lovely audio music theme
music
writer,
master. Yeah.
Ninty Fan 87, who
that's
is
Skirvo again.
Yeah.
Different names all over the place.
Adriel, Paul /Quaid, and Kai.
Yes. So thank you all for supporting us. We do have a Patreon now for people who are listening. You can go over and we just have one tier that's for $1. We don't really have much to give right now. We have a special role on our Discord and like a chat that's pretty fun. That we've got this group here, and me and McKenna are in there. And we just posted we're gonna do some bonus episodes, and we're gonna do like some of the things we're gonna do in it is a Q&A that we're gonna be getting questions from our patrons. So if you want to ask us a question that we'll answer on these episodes, you can go sign up for only $1. And we appreciate everyone who does it. It's a big help. So what do you say? Shall we go over to our main subject of the day?
Let's do it.
It's the real thing. A radio signal from another world.
Our intelligence tells us the object has settled into a stationary orbit. Part of it is broken off into nearly 36 other pieces, smaller than the whole, sir.
The unexplained phenomenon is headed for Moscow.
It's like a chess. First, they're positioning their pieces, using this one signal to synchronize their efforts. And then what? Checkmate.
There's gonna be a lot of frightened people out there.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
We will not vanish without a fight. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
Something you want to add to this briefing, Captain Hiller?
No, sir. Just a little anxious to get up there and whoop ET's ass, that's all.
We're talking about Independence Day, which came out around, I believe, the 4th of July holiday in 1996. It's directed by Roland Emmerich, and it's written by him and his and the producer, who is like they're kind of a duo. They've worked together on many films. Him and Dean Devlin is his name, and it stars Will Smith, Bill Pullman, Jeff Goldblum, Mary McDonnell, Judd Hirsch, Margaret Collin, Randy Quaid, Robert Loggia, James Reborn, and Harvey Fierstein, and many more. Yes, it was a massive hit movie, as we talked about, the #1 movie of 1996. Before we like talk about anything that happens in it, I know we talked about how you like disaster movies, and you like alien movies, and this is kind of both of them married together. But what I actually think that's a genre, or like a type of movie that Roland Emmerich himself has done quite a bit of. Are you a fan of his other movies, or do you?
I did see. I was looking at some of the other ones he did. Day After Tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
That one. I like that one. What's the other? There's a few others. Right?
That are like in that. Well, so I mean, I think we'll probably talk about it, but just the year after this, he did the Godzilla, like the American one with Matthew Broderick.
Actually, I haven't watched that all the way through. I've seen parts of it, but I've never watched the whole thing.
That, more so than this, was a massive movie for me as a kid. So I actually want to save talking about that, because I have a strong feeling we will.
Right.
But he also did, so other movies of that ilk, he did 2012.
Right. Yeah. That one that one's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so you're like vaguely aware of some, and you liked The Day After Tomorrow?
Yeah, I've seen that quite a few times. I feel like I had I think I got that actually as like a DVD set. I think that and Independence Day are on the set, or in the set.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it.
The Emmerich set. That's cool. For me, I mean, some of these movies were pretty massive, like just from when I was a kid. I'm a fan of some of his movies. I know he made like a handful of movies. He's from Germany before coming to Hollywood, but I am actually a fan of his two Hollywood productions before this. Like, so basically, his first two movies in America come before this, and one is one he just directed. So I think it's his first one in America, and they just gave him a movie to make, and it was Universal Soldier, which stars Jean-Claude Van Damme, and it's your classic kind of Van Damme movie. He's against Dolph Lundgren, who's the villain. It's awesome. But that's not one. I don't know what Dean Devlin's role was on that. I know Roland Emmerich didn't write it. You see a lot of his movies they write together, but then his second Hollywood film was Stargate, which they wrote together and worked on, and that was like a pretty big hit. And that's a movie I really like too. And it led to the show and being just a massive sci-fi franchise. So I feel like this movie is this is almost like his magnum opus in a way, because then after that there's a lot of baggage. Like I liked this, and then those other two movies I liked more as an adult. Like I only saw Universal Soldier again a few years ago, and but then Godzilla I loved as a kid. But then when I started to become of a certain age, like Day After Tomorrow I just kind of missed, and I sort of had in my head that it's sort of just this, what people say about really all of his movies, and 2012 in particular, where it just seemed like crass, like disaster nonsense CG bullshit, I guess. But I haven't actually seen them, so I don't know for sure. I did see that 10,000 BC. He made that movie. I saw that when it came out, but I also don't really remember anything about it.
I recognize the title, but I'm not sure what it is about.
Other than it's about that
10,000 BC.
I don't know. It's like a
time period.
It's about a guy. Then I don't know. It's like whatever. But yeah, so I kind of have always had since reaching adulthood had this opinion of all his movies are just kind of dumb, smat explosions and whatever, kind of like they say about like Michael Bay or something, but more for the disaster category. And I think there is definitely some like truth to that. Even in this movie, like this movie's kind of like dumb in a lot of ways, but it's like I feel like it's lightning in a bottle. Like a lot of things coalesce into something that's like so awesome that it's like it's only through like it's just like all the right elements had to be aligned, because I think like something about those we'll get into it, but I think something about those other movies that doesn't do it for me is like, well, for one, it's like you look at the star power, for one, I think really elevates this movie to another level. But there's a lot of great things going on in this movie. So I have some production notes or like details on how it was made. We watched all these featurettes and like little documentaries about how it was made. Did you have a favorite one that we watched? There was one with Jeff Goldblum. There was one that was like
I I kind of liked the E one, but just because of Bill Pullman.
Bill Pullman, yeah.
He was so goofy.
He was being goofy. Jeff Goldblum was being goofy,
I mean, he's
too.
always goofy. I expect him to be goofy.
Yeah, but in all of these, actually, they had the same story they were talking about that I feel like by the time we got to the one that was made during the sequel, like they embellished the story more and more. But basically the idea was like during the promotion for Stargate, they asked them like, how could you make a movie about like aliens or whatever if you don't really like believe in aliens? And there's some story where it's like, oh, imagine if like you woke up one day and there was a giant spaceship or whatever, and you know, I don't know, their story gets more elaborate, but basically, I mean, that's kind of, it almost sounds like it was like on a whim. They're like, yeah, that's a good idea for a movie, big space invasion. And they wrote it, I read that they wrote it like on vacation in Mexico, like real quick or something. So, and that, it really does have a, just like, yeah, you know, it's a...
I like watching them talk about all the effects, particularly all the miniatures that they did and like the explosions they did.
That was a big part of all of them. I think the one there's two they really showed off that I thought were really cool. One was the one of like the city streets being blown up and how they had to sort of like build this scale city model that was rather large and detailed. And to get like the flames to go a certain way, they had to like tip it, like elevate it and tip it so like the way the fire would spread.
Yeah, because like it starts at the bottom of their little miniature and goes up.
Yes, and so it creates this, you know, you see it in the movie, and it creates this effect of like the fires just burning through the city, which looked really sweet. And then the other big thing that they showed off that they made like a whole like press situation out of is they invited a bunch of people to come watch them blow up the White House, which the model they built for that really cool. was pretty big too.
Yeah.
And that's something that's one of the things I think is a key to this movie is you know, there's definitely like a lot of there's a lot of like the mixing of different elements of like CG and practical effects and stuff like this, and I feel like the fact that like they really blew things up though really is really what adds.
It looks really good.
It does look really good. Like obviously there's stuff that it's not even like I think I say this a lot on other movie podcasts, but I think it's viewed as a negative when you can tell that something is like CG or something like that, and that's why, I mean, just to briefly jump ahead, when we were watching the sequel, I was saying like this is the definition of like kind of like gray sludge movies where everything is so muted and toned down now. There's no like depth, and it makes like things look like they stick out less, but that to me also means like nothing pops either, you know.
Yeah.
So we were watching the footage of like in the original Independence Day of the city streets blowing up, which look cool, but you also it has this weird effect too when they're inserting people on the backdrop of this miniature exploding, where it doesn't look necessarily real or whatever, and there's that ridiculous dog jumping out of the way shot.
I love it.
But I think it looks genuinely dynamic. Like it pops, it's exciting. I think you compare that to later attempts at the same sort of thing, even the sequel in the movie, and it just doesn't, it's just not, it's kind of boring.
Definitely doesn't capture me the same way.
Yeah, it's almost like I found myself with that one more just passively watching, like, okay. How about, I want to talk about the alien designs, which were designed by the production designer Patrick Tatopoulos, which I'm glad I got right. Here's a fun fact, actually. Matthew Broderick's character in Godzilla, his last name is Tatopoulos. Wow. And there's a running gag in the movie that no one can pronounce it right. And now I was like reading this on screen. They named him after this guy, and I'm like, oh no, I'm going to mess it up. But I love this quote. There's a lot of quotes like this that are like, I want to say they're telling, but I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. But here's one I have, is they wanted him to design something that's both familiar but completely original. And I think what they were thinking was, like, the aliens in this movie is like, in my opinion, you combine, and they say this, the gray alien, which I think is the classic gray type alien that, like, you're thinking of like in the X-Files or whatever, that Mulder makes a joke about, and they're actually this anyway. That mixed with the completely original part is that they're inside this other exoskeleton. But that's also familiar too, because to me it just reminds me of the Xenomorph. Yeah.
So you do have like the one guy he's in a suit basically.
Yeah, basically.
And like underneath, the actual alien is very vulnerable. We'll
see that come up again in Men in Black, somewhat. But at the same time, like, it does look really cool. Both the like one alien design that always stuck out to me, like, was memorable since seeing it as a kid, was like the one who's just like working the ones and twos up in the mothership that they're I always remember that one, and it's very striking. And then like obviously the big like armored exoskeleton ones do, like, the actual like shape of their bodies, I don't know, they're pretty sweet, they're pretty badass. When we were watching that one video of like the toys of them, I was like, these do look like, I wouldn't mind having one of these. They look pretty cool sweet looking. But they do, I don't know, it does, like I said, I don't necessarily think it's bad, but it does feel like they mashed up like already existing kind of designs. I don't want to take away from their work or anything though, but it's very reminiscent.
You certainly look at it and go, that's an alien.
Yes. So the score for the film, done by David Arnold, who has done I think mainly his biggest stuff. He's done a ton of films, but he's done 5 Bond films, multiple Roland Emmerich films, a ton more. I believe he got a Grammy for this score to this film. And this is another quote that I thought, it's not telling, actually, that's not the right word, but it perfectly captures, I think, the tone of this and kind of how I think they were thinking of it, where they were trying to capture every last ounce of stereotypical Americana he could muster for the script. And I think that vibe, especially when I think of it set to the president's speech later in the film, like, that's it, the movie's like, I think it's very aware of like it's trying to capture kind of the silliness and the grandiosity of it a little bit. Like, in a way that I like. It's like, it's self-aware, but it's not like winking at itself, you know what I mean? It feels very, I don't know, it walks that line, I think, really well. So we saw that this was one of the first big like Super Bowl commercial advertisements, and I think from here on out, this kind of set the standard for like how they were going to advertising movies, like starting at the Super Bowl going forward. They had a lot of cool like teaser trailers for it and stuff that were, you know, they had a cool vibe, obviously, and they also did a co-promotional deal with Apple. I don't know if you recall, obviously Jeff Goldblum's computer in the thing is an Apple, and they had like a special deal with them, as well as they had the toys. We saw there's a lot of product placement going on in this. Molson, Coors, Coca-Cola. This was just a massive movie on all fronts. So, oh, and here's some of the taglines. They promoted with the movie. It was, we've always believed we weren't alone. On July 4th, we'll wish we were. Earth, take a good look. It could be your last. And don't make plans for August.
That's great.
Yes, and so they also there was I think there was some advertisement I wrote down that they were referencing War of the Worlds. Or no, that was we listened to the...
Yeah, they did. Well, there are definitely some War of the Worlds references in the movie, but I think one of the... Did the radio broadcast come out before the movie, or...
I don't believe so.
As part... Well, it's sort of a cross-media promotional sort of thing. They did like a British radio broadcast that they're basically talking about like the ships coming and like their experience, and I guess wherever I guess London. Yes. The ship that comes to London, and
they acted like it was a regular radio broadcast, much like War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
I thought that was fun to listen to until like they blew up, and then
it was a little jarring, because then it was just like, oh, now it's not like...
So
it switches to...
Yeah, it just switched to like the military element of it, and it was then more of like a radio play. And one thing I read actually was that like part of the deal was like, well, they can't like do anything. It was stipulated like they couldn't have them do too much because they didn't want to like undercut the movie. So the story we were listening to was really, they were just like, they saved the Queen of England.
Yeah.
It's like, great, cool. So that was not too exciting, but to talk about the movie, I thought that I just kind of wrote down some of the people in the cast. I don't want to go like, we all know what happens in the movie.
Well, I do want to talk about the beginning of the movie, or like the first like stretch, because I love it. I feel like there's so many movies where they spend the first bit just like introducing the characters and like they're going about their normal lives, but this like starts
like with the event.
They get the signal that they're all hearing. And then you start getting introduced to the characters who are somehow involved with this
almost as needed
signal. Yeah. So it's just like you're getting more and more information about the aliens, and then you're meeting all the characters, and the intensity just keeps ramping up, and it's like right from the beginning, and it just goes.
I think this is very common. Like, this has become more common now, especially, I mean, I think he probably did it in all his movies almost after this, but, and we sort of talked about to each other, I've mentioned like how there, like a lot of, zombie movies, like to do the thing where they just want to set you in it, and it's like, what's going on? And I think goes back to their initial, like, idea of what like, when they were like, imagine this, is they were talking about like, just imagine waking up one day and, you know, these aliens are here. So I think that's credit to like the vibe they were trying to convey in this movie, is like, that's really just what happens, is like the world is going about its business like it does, but here, like they're here, they're doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is very cool, and it has all these characters. And one thing that I think is cool is they kind of introduce them, and they all sort of bring them together at some point in a very satisfying way, which says a lot about like it doesn't, none of it feels kind of like forced or anything. And I think that they do a really good job of like handling the sort of ensemble sort of movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to talk about some of the people in the movie? I want to kind of get your feeling on the actor or the character or whatever I guess you want to add in from them. I sort of went from, I don't know, I guess you could say least important. I wanted to start off with, so let's talk about Brent Spiner as Dr. Oaken. What did you...
So, like, this was my first exposure to Brent Spiner.
Okay,
and, like,
yeah.
much later saw him in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know, for a while he was just like this goofy guy that you saw for a little bit, and like, all right, he's a little odd.
Yeah.
But he feels like a pretty small part of the movie, just kind of this goofy.
Yeah. He does, like, he stands out as, like, goofy. He's not, like, extremely over the top. He is more so in the sequel, I feel like. I feel like in that, too, it's like they're, with all the characters, it's like they're really, I don't know, it's just a tendency, I think, with sequels to, like, everything's got to be, like, whatever it was times 2, so.
I definitely feel like when I saw it when I was younger, I thought he was a little crazier than I do now. Now I'm like, now it's like, all these people are learning about the aliens, and they still think that the people who knew about the aliens before are crazy. Like, they just don't, like, they're not like, oh, I'm sorry, you were right. This is more specifically with a different character I will get to.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he's still, like, memorable and, like, kind of a funny, goofy character. But, he plays an important role in the movie, and a very obviously memorable role.
Yeah.
Harvey Firestein as Marty Gilbert, who's there's another smaller role, but that's Jeff Goldblum's coworker. I don't know. I thought he was fun in this little part that he had. They have a nice,
He's definitely one of the characters that kind of makes the movie border on like camp a little.
Yeah.
He's goofy.
He's one of the characters to have to kind of like up the stakes a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I didn't write him down, but so it's like Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah.
Will Smith's like buddy in it or whatever. He's one of those sort of characters. I was like, I feel like too, just like we're far down the list of like main characters in the movie, and like even these people are still very memorable, So I think that says a lot about. I think that's the other as well as like I think this being just like the right period of time in terms of the effects. I think it's like that and the cast I feel like is why this is such like a lightning in a bottle thing,
He has like a line about calling his lawyer. I was like, this is one of the many movies that made me think that as an adult everyone just had a lawyer on call.
Lawyers was such a joke. I feel like isn't as much anymore.
There's definitely like the evil lawyer thing going on, like with they have it in Jurassic Park, where the lawyer is kind of not the bad guy, but he's sort of antagonistic, even though he's there for good reasons.
I don't know if you remember in Suburban Commando, that Hulk Hogan movie, where there's those guys who are like those thugs who he's like gonna beef with, and he's like, "Oh, are you gonna fight me or something?" And they're like, "No, this is the 90s. We're gonna sue you." That was a big thing.
Oh, I've heard that.
And then also in we were watching that clip of when Danny DeVito dies in Mars Attacks. His character is a lawyer. And he's like, "You're gonna need a lawyer if you're gonna take over the world." So yeah, lawyer humor, always good. Okay. I'm excited about James Reborn, who played Albert Nabzitsky. He's like the CIA guy.
Oh, like
Not the
guy
general, but he's the guy from My Cousin Vinny as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy who's like the White House. Is he like
He's like
he's
the CIA's like, trying to, like, he knows about a lot of the stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I love him. Obviously, he's like one of my type of character actor guys I like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was trying to portray him, I read, based on Oliver North, who was involved in like Iran Contra, and so I thought that was kind of cool. Like, he does play a really good like shady intelligence agent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the right like level that they're going for in this, where it's like he's shady but like well-meaning. They're not gonna fully portray him like like some of the like people he's based on. So
Yeah.
But just props to this character, the actor. He's James Reborn. He's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, him, and I guess they have him higher because they have him higher on the list. But was it General Gray played by Robert Loggia? Also another that's one thing I love about these sort of movies, like all these sort of movies where you have like all the different heads of like the departments butting head. Like they have the army guy and the CIA guy, and then like the scientists. So that's always a fun dynamic in these. But I thought, dude, he was a classic like general character.
Definitely.
Yeah, pretty cool. Now let's talk about Vivica A. Fox, who played Jasmine Dubrow, who was Will Smith's future wife, or she becomes his wife in the movie. Yeah,
I love her.
yeah, she's cool.
I think her portrayal is really cool. I love the scene where she's talking to the first lady and she's telling her that she's a dancer, and she's like, oh, ballet, and she's like, no, exotic, and the first lady says sorry, and she goes, I'm not.
Yeah,
it pays the bills. Like,
yeah,
that's not something I'm ashamed of.
Yeah, there was like, that was a cool element. They like, it was played into Will Smith's character as well. They were talking about how like his association with her was going to hold his career back. He wanted to be like an astronaut or something, and and he doesn't care. So that kind of makes him even more. We'll talk about Will Smith more, but it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like a heroic element about him, I guess, that he's just a great guy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Margaret Collin as Constance Spano, which is sort of a why am I blanking on Jeff Goldblum's name, but his love interest. I feel like everyone's got to have a love interest in these movies. Like, it's another part of it's another facet of that I think.
Well, this is an interesting one because they're separated.
Yes, yeah, but
yeah.
These,
I don't know where she is in the sequel.
He's got someone. Well, it's just like she probably didn't come back for it, right?
Yeah.
But all these, I think these movies, kind of the big bombastic romantic movies. Everyone's got to have a love interest. I feel like her character is pretty good in this, but it's compared to like some other ones, it does feel a little bit. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like it's a little bit more like, yeah, this is just sort of like the love interest. They had a good like dynamic, I thought, and stuff.
I don't know. It felt like they needed a connection for Jeff Goldblum to the president.
Yeah. It serves a function.
It's a plot.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Randy Quaid, because I think like you referenced his character earlier, but I thought his character is an awesome part of this movie. Is like
Yeah.
one of the best parts. Both like ridiculous and I don't know, like the way I don't know, carries a lot of weight. It's definitely again in the more like rah, like it's like almost silly Americana, like I don't know, like a lot of the movie reads like vague propaganda, you know what I mean? But his character really, I don't know. What did you think about him?
He's really interesting because, you know, you first meet him as, you know, he's supposed to be watering. He's got his crop
Crop duster,
and he's an alcoholic, so he's making a lot of mistakes, and he goes to the wrong field, and he's kind of portrayed as just this irresponsible guy who has this crazy alien abduction story. And then, you know, when the aliens actually come to invade, he's the one who seems to know what he's doing. He like gets his shit together, and he's like, "All right, we're gonna go. We're I know how to survive." Somehow.
They say he's got like PTSD from Vietnam or whatever. That plays into, I think, part of the like, because you know the movie does a lot of things. I think it's very successful at this, but it has that sort of element like we talked about of like, oh, we're all just people, like the whole earth, we can come together, but it also feels like American propaganda in a weird way. Just I think it's just the tone that they capture, but I feel like this is a more specific one where like he represents kind of like at the time too, like that feeling of like how people felt about Vietnam and wanting to like move on from it, and his character almost represents that. I think, but there's something you know, if it is that, like it's so damn good at it, because like when I see him later in the movie and he's all clean shaven and he's like in his suit and he's listening to the speech, like I always tear up a little bit where I'm like, yeah, they got like he's ready to go, you know.
Yeah.
And they actually changed what happened with his character.
Like the last scene.
Yeah, so
I also read about some deleted scenes with like his son. So you know, there's that one spot where his younger son, like they pull over because he's like, I'm gonna be sick, and he goes and throws up. That's because he's like not like terminally ill, but like I guess serious, like he has some kind of brain thing or something. That he's taking medication for, and I think probably those scenes explain a lot of the older brother's frustrations with him, because he's like, I have to go beg for the younger brother's medicine because you can't afford it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think it gives a little more context, but.
Oh, I see. Well, they changed his ending as well. So he originally like took his biplane up, and I guess, and he like straps a rocket to it and does the same thing, I think. But people in tests, they're like very conscious of the test screenings, and they thought that was too ridiculous. Which, you know, it's also ridiculous that I think that they can train someone who is a pilot in Vietnam how to use like a, you know, something from like 20 years later or whatever, like a fighter jet. I don't know. Maybe I don't know anything about. It's believable in in this world of the movie. I'm not even trying to question that, but I think it actually makes his character arc stronger for me, because he still has like that heroic moment at the end where he blows up the beam or whatever, but like it also makes it feel like he's fighting alongside them in the end. I felt like that, like it was very important for me when I saw him, like in my takeaway of like my emotional reaction to it, seeing him there like as part of the force, you know,
like accepted.
Yeah.
Finally.
I mean, they still think he's kind of a wacko, but it's unclear whether he was abducted. You know, I don't think he was. So.
Yeah.
But I like his character.
That's nice that they keep that vague, unclear.
And it's cool that like he's like kind of insane now in real life. So.
Yeah.
Shout out.
I think that was like the first thing when I first saw that movie and he came up. My mom was just like, "Yeah, he's crazy now."
Yeah, he's living the gimmick, as they say.
Should we mention the special effects of that explosion?
Oh yeah,
this is really cool.
Really cool. Yeah.
They like reuse
the Empire
is it
State
the Empire?
Building.
Yes, the Empire State Building explosion. They like flip it
upside
down for when he goes up to when he flies his ship into their laser and blows up the alien ship.
Yeah, it's like
the same explosion but upside down.
Yeah, super cool, and it looks really good
Yeah.
as well in the movie. So, yeah, that was really awesome. And you also actually, before we go into the other people, you talked about like his son, but there's a lot of like kids in this that I didn't really put down, but like that was actually for me watching as a kid. Like I know they do this a lot, and they like it has varying degrees of success, but like watching as a kid, it did actually kind of that, and also like just seeing like I could kind of picture myself in that in that movie when I was a kid. You know, it felt very real. So I think it does do it with all the different types of characters and stuff, kind of being like an all-encompassing movie where like a lot of people can imagine like what they must, what you would be experiencing while this is happening, you know? So Judd Hirsch, who plays Julius, who's the father of Jeff Goldblum, obviously a really great iconic character in this. He's based on the writer's uncle, he said. I don't remember, but he's, I don't know, he's just like he's like almost like a comedic character because he's sort of like his like nagging father or whatever. But yeah, like they have him and Jeff Goldblum, I think, have a really good, you know, back and forth in this.
Yeah,
and he of course gives him the special
the virus.
That's one element. So like they're like, there's no way we can break these alien shields to fight them, which another thing actually about the production design, I just think the alien ship design is really cool. Like, and how they do it, like it's like a mothership, and then there's like almost like carriers that break off from that, and then smaller ships, like fighter ships that come off from that. I think that's really cool. Like I imagine this massive ship like flying around the universe or whatever, you know. Very, very cool like design concept. But
yeah, so the virus thing, that's like one of the big War of the Worlds references.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, because in War of the Worlds, that's how they defeat the aliens. They find out, like, you know, humans can handle, you know, a lot of viruses because we're used to them, but the aliens' immune systems couldn't handle, like, some of the simple colds.
That's like in Signs, too.
So, yeah.
They're not built for
they
this.
They can't, Earth is no bueno.
Okay.
So they kind of they turned it into a computer virus.
Yeah, which seems like it's fine. It's so much more novel, I think, at that time now, though, because of our understanding of computers. Because it's like, that feels like something that if you did that now, they'd have to be like, well, yeah, we hacked, like that'd be like step one of what you would think of, was like hack them and wreck their computer. But they act like it's such a big, like, he says the word virus, and Jeff Goldblum's like, why didn't I think of that? You know, it's just, it's not really like, it doesn't affect the world of this movie. It's more of like, I mean, it makes sense at that time, I guess. Like, that's the most genius thing you could think of on a computer, is to hack them and put in a virus. But it works really well in the movie. Obviously, he's like, just like, it's because it comes out of his whole like thing he's doing to him the whole time. He's like, what is he like? Get off the ground! You're gonna get you cold or whatever. You know, he's just nagging him some more. So, all right. So we can talk about let's combine. Let's talk about Mary McDonnell as the first lady and Bill Pullman as the president. I thought the casting actually for her as the first lady is really funny because I believe in the Battlestar Galactica show she plays the president.
Oh.
So
Wow.
that's pretty cool. But what'd you think of I think it's another case where like I feel like she was like felt like pretty real as a character, but she was a little bit more ancillary, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they kind of try. I think the only scene that those two have together, the only scene that they actually have physically together, they do talk on the phone, but it's when she's dying.
Yeah.
But they kind of set it up that they have like this. Seems like they have this nice, strong relationship, and she's always going liar.
Yeah.
they have that line.
She's very like
it
honest.
Feels like, I don't know. I feel like as soon as she comes into the movie, it feels like she's not gonna make it through the whole thing.
Yeah,
like
so she's like the Harry Connick Jr. for him.
Yeah.
But she is like, I like they kind of present her as like she's like a very honest, straightforward character. Like what I remember, like I like that line where he's like a whole lot of people are gonna be freaking out right now, and she's like, and I'm one of them. You know, she's like,
yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was okay. But Bill Pullman, sorry,
no, she's very confident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, straight like she'll tell you basically like it is. But Bill Pullman as President Thomas J. Whitmore, he's the other example I think of like, obviously his big rah-rah speech we'll talk about as being like one of those like that like where it feels like, oh, I feel like I am watching like like this is like propaganda, you know what I mean? Like in the most effective way, but also just the concept of him as like a ex Gulf War hero, like because we used to elect presidents who were war heroes and stuff like that. We don't do that. The
exclusive thing for a long time.
We haven't done that since like the Eisenhower. That used to be the thing though. Like actually like I think post Civil War, like every Republican president was like a general. Pretty much, but like we don't like after Vietnam especially, but like we lacked that like national confidence, and I think this is like even just before anything happens, like the idea of him being president is sort of like wish fulfillment, you know, because like the Gulf War itself was supposed to be like this at the time. People were like, oh, we can get over like Vietnam now, we've got like this war that we won real good. And we were ambiguously good. I have, you know, in quotes here. And so, like, the character himself, I feel like, is... We have not... we've not elected a Gulf War veteran president. At least I don't think. We almost did. Mayor Pete was in Afghanistan. That's close. But yeah, no, so like that itself is that, but he's so awesome in this movie. He's like the quintessential president
very
in a movie,
very neutral.
Yes, they
don't go into his politics at all.
The movie is the most well in such a 90s way, like the 90s like centrist type like yeah, I don't know. It's basically like, I guess if Bill Clinton was like less of a party guy and was a veteran, you know, but like someone that's like just can be like, this is like a cool guy who's like heroic, you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, it's hard to like, I don't know what else to say about like his big speech. Everyone knows that it's iconic, but
there's also sort of this aspect at the beginning where it seems like a lot of the people are doubting him, whatever his policies are.
Yeah, but like, someone's like, I voted for the other guy.
He's a younger guy.
Yeah,
less than probably half the age of our recent
Right.
presidents. Real
Yeah.
president.
Well, he's like that's why I mentioned Bill Clinton. Because
Yeah.
in a lot he's younger than our last couple presidents.
Yeah.
You know, so but yeah, like his, and then obviously like we get it's to take that coolness, heroicness to another level. Obviously, like when he steps up and he flies, and it's like hell yeah.
Yeah.
After giving the speech, he's gonna lead everyone in battle.
Yeah.
Like it's just like for being, because it is an ensemble. They do a very good job of like, spreading out who everyone's stories and stuff like that. But when I was growing up, the real stars of the show weren't him, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about our leads. We'll talk about Jeff Goldblum first. But him and Will Smith obviously have a great dynamic. Let's talk about both of them. Jeff Goldblum. You love Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk in, I guess, the features we watched, that like he's coming off of a few years from one huge blockbuster into another.
Yes, this is like kind of the pinnacle for him in a way. I mean,
yeah,
he sort of had like a career, not that he ever dipped, but like when he started to do like like Wes Anderson movies and stuff like that, he kind of took on a different role, and obviously he had career in the decades prior to this, but this was kind of like the peak of him in like the big Hollywood movies, right?
Yeah,
this is his most normal role I feel like he plays.
Yeah. He's just a regular guy. He's definitely like weirder in Jurassic Park.
Oh, he's kind of a freak
eccentric.
in Jurassic Park. Yeah,
he's still got like, I don't know. He's still a lot of times in Jurassic Park seems like the voice of reason.
Yeah, for sure. In this, he's like goofy in the way he is, but like in a more tame way that like you can imagine, like you're like kind of weird, like
just your average, your coworker.
He's a very good
smart
everyman in this. He's riding his bike in the office or whatever. He's like, whoa, this guy's crazy, but not like not really crazy. Yeah, he's great in this. And we talked about the dynamic between him and his father. Obviously is such a key component, but and obviously with Will Smith, who is, I think, like I said, all the elements of lightning in a bottle. Like, I think Will Smith is actually the most important thing in this movie, even though you don't see him for the first half hour.
Yeah, it takes a while. He's just like so like charismatic, and
he's such a star.
Like, yeah, he feels like a movie star.
And this is like when we're watching those behind the scenes things, they're talking about how he's on his ascent, which I mean, like, he is in a way, but like this is also like this supposed to solidifies him, but then a year later with Men in Black, like this is like his actual like powerhouse part of his career. I feel like his run. Obviously, it was like the Fresh Prince, and that was a big hit, and he won, musically and as a show, that was massive. But then the year before this, he was in Bad Boys, amazing, and then after this, Men in Black, it's just like, what a run,
Yeah.
And all those movies, well, like they're all built on actually his dynamic with someone else who is also awesome in those movies. So I don't want to take away from them, but obviously he is such a charismatic presence, and he's so cool. Like when I was a kid, I was like, this is like I couldn't. Like Bill Pullman is now someone who I can see like now as an adult that people are like, yeah, this is like the cool idealized like president character. But when I was a kid, like I couldn't imagine anyone cooler than Will Smith. Like it was just impossible. Just so much of the movie of him. I don't know, he's got obviously all these iconic lines, and and him and Jeff Goldblum, really, that I guess, a lot of that was kind of improvised.
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff.
what I was gonna say. A lot of those two, as well as Judd Hirsch. Their conversations were very improvised.
Yeah, you can. I don't know.
It's really good.
Those were always some of the, like, I still remember from this and Men in Black and stuff, like, as a kid, I just thought he was so funny. And it still has a thing, like, where I watch it now and I'm like, it's still, some things that I think kids think are cool, and there's elements of this are, like, a little silly. There's some silly, he's like, oh, I gotta get me one of these or whatever, it's like silly, but like he really sells you on it. Like, I still think he's awesome.
I definitely think that the set of actors really makes the movie. Like, I could see where if they'd had a different set of actors,
so much of this movie is very cheesy,
wouldn't have been, yeah, this could have just been like a real cheesy, like, goofy movie, and it is, but it feels,
I think it walks the line perfectly, where
epic and exciting fun,
bombastic,
there's like high stakes and danger, but it's also a lot of fun.
I was really freaked out when I was a kid when they were actually in the mothership.
Yeah, I do remember like feeling scared, nervous at a few parts of the movie.
Yeah,
especially I think most when they've got the alien in the lab.
Yes,
and he's like communicating through Brent Spiner. Yeah, that was freaky to me.
And it's like, it's something too that's like, it's scary because there's like nothing. It reveals really that there's nothing they can do other than kill them, which is another like way that it feels like propagandistic, where it's like because the movie is like created an enemy where there's nothing you can really do except murder them, which I'm sure that happens, obviously, but like that's definitely a key to those types of films, is to portray your enemy like that. But
very black and white.
Yes. But I love, it was like really scary when they got him and he's like, release me, and they're like, well, what do you want or whatever, and he's like, well, to kill all of you.
Yeah.
So
it's like Jesus.
So really the alien is just sort of hoping that, by threatening him they'll release him, because otherwise there's no recourse of debate or some sort of agreement, so very cool. But yeah, Will Smith punching aliens and stuff, like, really sick.
That was
cigars.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He just goes up. God, I would have been so scared of that alien, but he just goes up to it.
He's not afraid. Yeah. Is there any other element of this movie proper that you want to discuss? There's more things I want to talk about, but because it does go on to, spawn a lot of other things. Oh, I wanted to talk about the awards too. I didn't write them down, but let me pull them up.
I think I made a comment while we were watching. I was like, this is the vehicle part of the movie, because it's like after the first big attack, and like you got a set of people who are on the plane, and you got Randy Quaid and his kids in their trailer.
Yeah.
And Jasmine's got her truck that she's picking up random survivors in. They're all just like level. Traveling, and they're just like, oh, they're all going to
that shot
Area 51
of all the trucks driving in the desert is really cool. There's a lot of great sets and locations they got too. Like it's a cool. Well, I want to say it's a globe spanning movie, but we really only see it from the American perspective.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. I like whenever I'm watching this movie and we get to the end, when they show all the other ships around the world that they've defeated, I'm always like, oh, I wonder how this battle went in this part of the world.
that's something that's
Like, did they have somebody do a suicide plane into the ship? Or did they all function okay?
They're like, oh, we destroyed it, so like everyone should be good.
Yeah.
So
like, okay.
Yeah. So that's like
no
that's
one
fine.
failed.
Well, that's a thing in the sequel that so I was thinking about other adaptations of this, and we talked about, I thought that beginning part of that radio play was cool because instead of like, well, one thing that the sequel kind of lacked, I thought, was like having Will Smith in it, for example.
Yeah.
But I think the alternative route would be to, instead of trying to focus on all the same characters and finding a reason, is to just shift focus. And I thought that was cool about the radio thing.
Yeah.
And one element in the sequel film they talk about is one of the ships that landed, it landed in Africa somewhere, and all the aliens that were on the ship came out. And they had to like fight a war with them.
Right.
Forever. It's like, that's super interesting. And that the sequel does become kind of globetrotting. And it sort of makes me think, like, well, we are also reading about some of the books about how they showed other perspectives. I'm like, yeah, there's like a lot here that you could really focus on that's like more of a simple story. But obviously with the sequel, it's got to be, we just got to have an even bigger fucking ship and all that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, there's like a lot of different perspectives that they could show, not even as a sequel. Like, well, it could be a sequel, you know, like the 10-year battle with the aliens in Africa is cool, or like what the British people were doing, or you know, I don't know, like there's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, especially they really like present it as like a global thing, but it feels very American focused.
Like the movie is an effective piece of American propaganda for sure. But you know, we're all, whether you're a stripper or a weird Jewish dad, he's not weird actually. He's kind of a relatively normal guy.
He saved the world.
I remember actually in the one thing we featured, his original name was like, so it was more of a like stereotypical Jewish name or something. He's like, I can't play a character named this, I think he said. And they're like, well, what should his name be? And he was just like, I don't know, Julius. He thought of Julius Caesar, he said. I love that. They were just like, sure, whatever, you're Julius now. Okay, I want to talk about some of the awards that it got. Not all of them. And it made a crap load of money. Whatever, we're not going to talk about that. It made a ton of money. It was the biggest movie in 1996. But some awards, visual effects it got at the Academy Awards. That's cool. It ran the gamut at the Saturn Awards, which is like the big sci-fi award show they do. It got nominated for a bunch and it won. What was it? Best director, best science fiction film, you know. Some fun ones I want to talk about was it won favorite movie at the Kids' Choice Awards, which some of these, we're actually probably going to talk about some of these award shows because they happened in 1997. So we'll come back to that, but I love that. But Will Smith also got nominated for favorite actor at the Kids' Choice Awards. So I like to see what the kids are up to. MTV Movie Awards, it won my favorite category at the MTV Movie Awards for best kiss between Will Smith and Vivica Fox, and it best action sequence, aliens blow up cities, it was nominated for. I love that category, but it got nominated a bunch there. And we mentioned the Grammy, of course, so that's pretty cool. I think that's the main. Oh well, here I got the both Golden Raspberry and what's the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards. Needless to say, and I know what people are getting at, but there is a contingent of people who are just like, you know, like, well, the movie didn't even really review that great. It's kind of mixed, but this is not the type of movie that I really expect to do like review particularly well in that regard. It's it is sort of this quintessential big dumb popcorn movie that, you know, because of forces that came together is a little bit it's a cut above, I think. But it spawned some other things. We talked about the radio program we talked a little bit about the toys, which we watched that video where all the toys also came with these little floppy disks where you could play little mini games on. That was quite a cool, very cool. Like they all were like these little nonsense games where you just like click on a couple things. But I thought that was really cool at the time. I remember when I would get something that's like a CD, like from a band or something, is like, put this in your computer and it'll do something. Like that was such a cool thing at the time. But I want to see what you think about some of the concepts for the novels. There were spin-off novels done. Both movies have novelizations, but then the second novel that ever came out was called Independence Day Silent Zone, and it's set in the late 80s, early 70s, and it details the early career of Dr. Oaken. So sort of a Brent Spiner book. I could see that being cool, like almost having like a like maybe he has
the info
encounters, X-Files type.
Oh, you know what
situation.
else? I wonder if it talks about any of the alien, like using the alien tech as Earth tech, because there was another. I don't know if it was deleted or an extended scene that got shortened, but where they kind of, I don't know if it's implied or directly said that current Earth technology in Independence Day was kind of reverse engineered from alien tech that they found back, in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, you can't go back in the sequel. They commit to that where it's like, it's not a real, like, not that the first movie is like realistic, but you know what I mean? Like the world it's set in is realistic, or in the sequel they're like, we took all the alien tech and made lasers and sentries for the planet. So, but yeah, so you're saying like cell phones or something like that,
just like computers, and
that's pretty cool.
I think they kind of were figuring out certain things from the aliens because they had tech, something like that.
And that's how he could develop his laser that he had in the sequel that was unrelated. It's like, no, I just call this the Oaken laser. Okay, so we think that sounds like that could be a good book.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll read that. So maybe on a long drive we'll find an audiobook. Oh yeah. Independence Day, War in the Desert. These came out like a couple years after the movie, like all in these two in the 90s. So War in the Desert is about the two Royal Air Force officers that we see like communicating. So I don't know what happens with them, but we see their perspective of it. So I think that's cool. I think that's a good idea. I don't know about the execution, but it sounds like interesting. Less interesting
at least
than
like
Oaken,
the concept of the different perspectives.
Yes. And then there's one book from 2016 called Independence Day Crucible that bridges the gap between the two movies. I don't know what it's about at all, but it sounds like it's just there to kind of, I don't know if that's needed, but it could be cool.
Just, I don't know, maybe if they had a good sequel.
Yeah.
Then it.
Well, I kind of think maybe it could be cooler. It could be, if it talks about like things like we're talking about, like what was happening with some of these characters.
I think they should just do a book of the original Independence Day sequel script, because they had one where or I don't know if they had a script, but they had a concept where Will Smith came back. He didn't die.
Yeah, that.
So I'm curious to see how that would have unfolded.
They should have made a movie or book or something where we go out and we kill the aliens. We go kill them.
Yeah.
I think that'd be pretty cool. Final thing I wanted to talk about before we go, because it's sort of and we already sort of talked about this on a previous ep, but it's just sort of a interesting side thing in this, is the movie Mars Attacks. which I think is just in it. We've talked about there's like a 90s alien phenomenon, but Mars Attacks is interesting because it's basically a parody of this movie that they were making at the same time.
Yeah.
But they kind of had the same idea in mind. But just one thing that really stands out to me is just the tone of how they handled it. We sort of talked about this is like if you shifted like a classic Americana like propaganda movie to being about aliens, like Mars Attacks is almost like it's like a satirical version of it, because I think it's funny because like it's got that same thing where like there's nothing you can do to really reason with them, except in Mars Attacks they make it such a joke, like almost like everyone else is like the aliens come to Earth and they like kill everyone that they meet there initially, and they're like, oh well, okay, like let's translate, like, or let's talk to them and get them to come talk to Congress, and they kill everyone in Congress. And the whole time there's like the two generals, there's like the Colin Powell guy who's like he's like the yes man or whatever, but then there's the one guy who's just like, we gotta blow him up, we gotta kill him, and he's right. Like the war mongering like bloodthirsty general is right. Like these aliens like just want to kill everything, and they're assholes, and and they're like Bugs Bunny. If Bugs Bunny was killing everyone, they're like pranking everyone and murdering everyone. And I think that, I don't know, it does have like I feel like it's not like, I don't know if it has like a specific thing it's really pointed at. I think it's just trying to like poke fun at all that stuff. It's really just a bunch of jokes, but you haven't really even seen the whole thing in full, but I just think it's interesting that I think it's a really good parody of that type of movie, which wasn't even like a big thing when Independence Day was made. They were talking about how it does harken back to classical movies, and Mars Attacks goes for that because it uses a lot of like 50s sci-fi military, equipment and like designs and stuff. So I don't know, I just wanted to throw that in there too. It's just another great snapshot of that time,
Yeah.
and we saw how they used the White House sets on both.
Yeah. That's cool.
And there's a lot of fascinating similarities, but that we don't have time to get into all that, of course. Well, yeah, so that kind of, I mean, do you have any final thoughts sort of on Independence Day as a whole? I feel like we've kind of said it all. We sort of touched on everything. Oh, there was a video game for PlayStation that I watched like a long play of stuff, and it looked like kind of like, Star Foxy, you're flying around shooting stuff. But it looked kind of looked like phone. I don't know. It looked low budget or something like that. Like it just had like some clips from the movie, but it didn't really look like much was going on other than like fly around and shoot the stuff. I didn't get a chance to try it out though. Neither of us did, so I can't say too much about it. But it didn't look. I did see Andrew shared with us when you beat it, it tells you to go outside. So I like that. Touch grass, yeah. In some words. But I don't know. It didn't look very. I don't know. It just looked like you're shooting stuff in the various settings of the movie. So, whatever. I'd like to. That's kind of a side note, but I'd like to cover some PlayStation games eventually on the show, like some contemporary games. Maybe when I'd like to do it, I'd like to get a PlayStation at some point. Maybe, we're not go as hard, but maybe once in a while drop a bonus. So, but we're probably not going to do Independence Day. I'm gonna save it for something more fun, more worth our time. So sorry to the game, but but yeah, it was pretty fun. Like I said, anything else you want to say about Independence Day?
Think we've about.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely, to me, it's a 90s classic.
It's a 90s classic, yeah.
Yeah. Something I can just put on anytime and have a good time.
I want to cover more 90s classics too. We'll do more movie episodes for sure. Some big ones like this, or important ones or whatever, what I don't know. Let us know. Leave a comment of other movies you think that might be good to cover.
Yeah.
I don't know. We like watching movies as well as playing games, so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sweet. Thanks to everyone for listening. Of course, our artwork was done by Corey, and our music was made by Nico, our two dear pals. Thank you so much to them for helping us get the vibe right on the show. As I said at the top, you can whatever you're listening on, go to however you're listening, go and rate, like, review, subscribe, thumbs up, whatever platform. There's a way to let us know you're liking it. We'll try to shout you out. We really appreciate that. It's definitely helped out a lot. We're on Blue Sky, the social media platform. We're Flashback64 on there. We have the Patreon, as we mentioned, only $1. Patreon.com/Flashback64. We're on Twitter or X or whatever, at Flashback64pod. You can email us even if you want to email us. We're flashback64pod@gmail.com. And we have a Discord, which has been
flourishing.
It's flourishing. Everyone
There's
loves.
always combos going on.
There's all types of things to talk about. We're talking about food. We're talking about movies. We're talking about games, obviously, wrestling. If there's a topic you think we need to bring to the table, let us know. But I'll have a link in the description of the show to come join. So come join us there. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Hello, boys! I'm back!